Hi, Wildling. Hey, I'm still looking for some more interesting guests on European herbalism and foraging. So if you know anybody that would want to be a guest in my podcast series, please feel free to reach out and contact me through social media, Wild Plant Forager, or through my website, wildplantforager.com. Thank you so much. Welcome to Wild, the podcast for wildlings just like you. Wildlings who want to transform the prevalent plant blindness to collective plant wisdom. My name is Lieve Galle. I've been working as a herbalist and wild plant forager in Belgium since 2002. In those years, I've seen a lot of changes. Working with plants has become more popular, but I've also seen time is running out for our planet. As foragers and herbalists in Europe, sometimes we're dealing with different plant species and different cultural approaches towards plants. In some countries, working with plants is licensed, and in others, it's almost illegal. I believe that together we can learn from one another and be stronger. There is nothing more empowering than connecting wild souls. Together, we can have a greater impact on restoring the ancient link between people and plants. And that's why, for this podcast series, I'm talking to fellow herbalists and foragers in Europe. So if you're ready to find out what you've never been told, but what your soul already knows, welcome to Wild. Hi, wildlings. Welcome to a new episode of the Wild podcast. And today I'm here with Lyra Alves. She's a very experienced herbalist and herb woman. She used to live in Brazil, then she lived in Belgium, and now she lives in Poland. So it's going to be lovely to have a conversation with her about these different countries and how they deal with herbalists and with herbal healing. So Lyra, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Liv. It's a pleasure talking to you.
And I forgot to mention, Lyra is also one of my ultimate vegan chef's favorites. She's just an amazing wizard with ingredients, with plant-based ingredients. I just want the listener to know this, Lyra. You are
Thank
really
you.
wonderful when it comes to cooking. So,
Thank you so much.
Lyra, how did your love for plants get started?
It was early in my life. I was blessed with living in a place that had a relatively large garden. So we were always playing in the garden. But in our vacation time, I would go to the countryside where people lived very much in nature because it was a simple life. And in there, I was already exposed to the ancient healers and the old folk healers who knew those special formulas and the special plants that would heal this and that. So for me, that was always fascinating. And I'm really blessed to have been exposed to all those things from childhood because it gave me that feeling of like, wow, this is really where my heart is. So I was always, my interest whenever I heard, oh, there is this person, this folk healer, curandeiro. That's how they call in South America, pretty much everywhere in South America, curandeiro, Brazilian or Spanish. And you would find them in a lot of the countryside spread through South America. You find originally they were their shamans. They hold the real knowledge about the plants and the connections. And that knowledge was shared culturally from mouth to mouth. And of course, it gets diluted. So when it gets to the modern day curandeiros, yeah, you will get just a tiny drop of what it originally was. So the deeper you go into the woods, into the real, less civilized parts of South America, then you'll find the real deal. Then you can get to really know some knowledge like, oh, this plant works for this. But if the person has what we call perhaps choleric temperament, if the person has some bile problems, they would explain that in a very simple way. But in terms of energy, and they know much more about the work of the plants according to the energy and what would work for that person. And that was for me, so it's not just like, oh, he has a throat ache and you're going to treat everybody with the same plant. So this knowledge of specificity of plants, that was for me. So this is another level. And it pushed me, I always wanted to go and know more about these things. So while I was in Brazil, it was easy to go and not easy. You had to go and drive a lot and find these people. But later in life, I became a teenager, and then you get to want to intellectualize a lot. And I needed to make sense of those things because let's face it, I grew up in a very large urban area from 5 million people. And I wasn't living directly in contact with nature. Totally not. So I needed to have something rational. I needed to have books and an explanation about what is it that they are calling this energy? What is it that makes, for instance, it is like, I don't know, 128 plants that could help this throat ache, but one will help this person. For me, this was the real knowledge I was after.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the closest I found were the books of Michael Tierra, The Way of Herbs and the Planetary Herbalism, Herbology. And those books, him and David Hoffman, they were my two mentors. I was like dedicated to just know their books from front to back. And later on, I went into the knowledge of Chinese medicine, which helped me to further this kind of knowledge and identify the patterns between what was affecting people, which herbs are going to be specific for them. So this is what lightened up my heart for the
Yes.
field of plants.
Wow. And I'm just trying to imagine because for me as a Belgian woman, it just was not a thing. Growing up as a child, there were no herbal healers around me. I had never heard of this. It was just in my world, it was pretty much non-existent. So I'm just trying to imagine how it would feel to grow up in a world like yours, where those people were there and setting the example. And it's very interesting also how you say that you were triggered by the not one size fits all approach, but yes, more the individualized path of herbal medicine. That's really interesting. Yeah.
And now you made me curious. Can I ask what triggered your passion for plants?
Ah,
Growing up in a place where no one else had this. This is a
yes.
pioneer work, right? This is really even more interesting story.
Well, actually, I did have plants around. So my father took us to the botanical garden almost every weekend, and we had a garden ourselves. We were lucky, and yes, my grandfather on my mother's side, he also had a big garden, but it was just decorative plants, nothing, just like it was in the 80s and the 90s. But then at one point, I went into a bookstore to find a wonderful book. It was with photographs of the forests. I loved it, and I think this was one of the first books that I bought for myself as a present for myself. And when I was paying it, the woman said, "Oh, we have some extra small books here. You get them for free when you buy a book." And it was a book on herbal medicine. It was a tiny, tiny book, very small, very thin, but just this whole thing. It was like me opening the book, and it was like grabbing my soul and transferring me to a different world. I can really only describe it like that. And that was like the first time, I think I was 14 at that time, that I thought, wow, this is a thing and people do this. I remember the book was mostly, well, the booklet really was most about traditional herbal medicine in like the Alps and in Swiss and in France. Um, but yeah, it got my attention, and I was just trying to find people who were also doing this in Belgium, but it was really hard to find them. Yeah, yeah. So now you have the story. I love it
Beautiful.
when guests ask me questions. Yeah.
But this is so moving. This is
Yes, because
beautiful.
I did always have this connection, I think, with the plants. And yes, what also helped is that we had rabbits. We had rabbits, pet rabbits when I was a kid, and they were when they were running free in the garden. It was a wild garden, and when they were running free, I would just go lay in the grass and in the herbs with them and just watch what they were eating and watch their behavior. And this was, I also like to say that I just got a lot of plant love from the rabbits. They showed me the way. Yes.
Yes, animals are real. The real Zen masters
Yes. Yes.
for me as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Lyra, you lived in Brazil and then you became a herbalist there, but it's not really, I think you studied phytotherapy, right? Instead of herbalism. So,
Yes, it's like this. I was in medical school when I decided to do a weekend course. It was an intensive course, 2 years, but every weekend. So combined with going to university, every weekend I would go to another university that had this weekend intensive grown up courses on Chinese medicine, traditional
mhm,
Chinese medicine. It was the pioneer course in Brazil. There was no official academic curriculum like there is in so many places right now, but back then there wasn't, and it was a real, they squeezed the Chinese curriculum in those 2 years because that's all that was legally allowed at that point. So we had to
mm,
study a lot of things from books and material that were not available. So we had to really do it in a shorter version. But while I was doing this Chinese course, I had the chance to do internship at a hospital, at an official university hospital. And that was it for me because in there, the doctors would send the patients they gave up on, all the complicated cases, chronic diseases and things, to this clinic that my mentors, my acupuncture mentors, they set up this, they called that the pain clinic. It was officially just to heal pain because
mhm,
acupuncture was already at that time proven to reduce pain in patients, and they wouldn't explain why. They didn't understand the mechanism, but they knew it worked because the patients were getting better. So I was fascinated by the work, and we got a green light to do anything we wanted because the patients were basically thrown there because the doctors literally didn't know how to help them. So
mhm,
we could use herbs. We could treat the chronic kidney disease because the doctors also didn't know how to treat that. And patients, for instance, with a less stage nephropathy and neuropathy from diabetes, from complications from diabetes, and edema everywhere. And we would just use, for instance, things like dandelion. So simple. It worked like much quicker than any diuretics. So we would see that those results in cases where the doctors just simply gave up. And for
Wow.
me, there was like, and then I realized that what I was looking for was the real healing, to go into the root causes.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't there, and I thought this magical course, the academic course, is wonderful if you want to save lives, you want to do stitches, and you want to save a
Mm-hmm.
life, and this is super important and a beautiful work. But that's not what I want to go for. So I dropped. And of course, it was a shock for the family, for the friends, and everybody shocked, because getting into university in Brazil is really hard. So you really work a lot to get there, and it's just for the chosen ones who really, so nobody drops from medical school. So it was an extra shock for everyone. So it was emotionally difficult to face the yeah social life and the environment, but my heart was so powered by the possibilities of the doors that were just opening, wow, there is those magical plants that are the easiest plants. You find them everywhere, and they can do things that several other drugs are not doing.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I want. You just use a combination of needles, and the person can walk without pain. So those things were for me. Yeah, I'm interested in this magic. This is really what powers me still today. Everything that I feel worth learning more about, digging deeper. I think the field of healing, herbs, the combination of work that our body can cope with or can handle. What is it that this patient has the same symptom, but the other one got better quicker? So there is so many variables. You
Mm-hmm.
see, for me, this is a puzzle that we will forever be working on as healers. You will always be busy learning more, studying more, digging more. So for me, this is something that will just forever be giving me the energy to keep studying from other herbalists, from other people working with different, in different fields
Mm-hmm.
of healing. So
Yeah, it's also one aspect that makes it really exciting for me, that the learning part is never over. It's always there's always
exactly.
something new and something, and also scientifically sometimes there are new insights that are
Yes.
really valuable. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I love how science is finally getting to publish so many things that were used to be called witchcraft, or
Hmm.
like, mumbo jumbo, whatever. They in the past, I think, especially in the 80s and 90s, people were still regarding this complementary medicine as it was. Doctors were dismissive of the work of any of the healing acts that were not the conventional medicine.
Hmm.
And then a lot of these pioneering countries, Switzerland, Austria, Germany, especially, and now in the United States, there's so many hospitals working together with herbalists, with acupuncturists, even with homeopathy. So it's brilliant to see. And for me, this is the future, that all the modalities are working together, connected, supporting each other, because there is no, this is better. No, we need everyone. We need every healer. Every field of work is absolutely needed, because we humans are very sick on all levels. So we need a lot of healing. And there is different levels of healing, and there is different needs for each patient. So I find it beautiful when I see this pioneering work of these hospitals and these clinics where everybody sits together to try to save one patient. That it's a complicated case, but each one will have a different insight and a different input, which is just as invaluable to the situation, depending on the case. It's beautiful when there is
Yes.
mutual respect.
Yes, and I agree that the multi-perspective thing is so valuable, I think.
It's the future.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is the future of healing. The future of real medicine will be when all the practitioners get together to work as a team,
Mhm. Mhm.
because health, yeah, we are just scratching the surface. We know nothing about the human body, and we think we know anatomy, we know a little bit of physiology, but there is so many mysteries and so many things that we don't know. Why this patient got COVID and he's still having symptoms for 4 years on, while other people are going their lives as if nothing happened.
Mhm.
Why? These whys are for me the key of any learning that it's worth learning. You see, the questions of why these things happen. And yeah, so I will forever be asking why.
Yes. So you spent your youth in Brazil growing up there, and then you came to Belgium. You lived there for quite some years, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
17 years in Belgium.
17 years, and then you moved to Poland. How long are you living in Poland now?
6 years.
6 years. Okay. So if you look at these three countries, what kind of differences do you see when it comes to like general basic plant knowledge amongst the population?
It's probably very different if you consider, for instance, large urban areas compared to the countryside.
Mhm.
But what I see as a difference is, well, in Brazil, because there is still a lot of influence from the indigenous culture, I think this is probably why there is some openness to herbalism. There is a lot of openness, and there is a lot of scientists investigating the power of plants. So I'm also very grateful that when I was there and when I was studying, I could go to a lot of herbal congresses and see reputable scientists with a lot of PhDs talk about a lot of plants that have they were considered magical plants by the indigenous cultures. And now they found out, oh, they have actually these and these and these compounds that will fight cancer better than any drug they had found at that time, for instance, just to mention an example. Or a certain plant that will heal stomach ulcers. And then I would learn the Latin name, then go investigate the plant and try them in patients, because I was already practicing with together with some doctors. We had a clinic together, so I would try. Oh, you have stomach ulcer. This has zero side effects. Just try it, and in 2 weeks, the patient was completely pain free and being able to eat whatever he wants. So I had a real great chance to be practicing these things and check in real time the results, because a lot of herbs, most herbs, they have real limited side effects. If you know what you're doing, you start low dosage and then you move on and you try to check which constitution will adapt well on this situation. And even when herbalists are sometimes hesitant, I think we should be not so confident. We should always be hesitant. But if you think about it, it's the same with conventional medicine. The doctors are also doing trial and error all the time. Oh, try this antidepressant, and then we're going to see. If it doesn't work, in 2 months I'll see you, and then we try something else. I mean, if it's worth trying something, but with a drug that will have so many very dangerous side effects, it's worth trying also something on a level that can have less harmful consequences to the body. So I think that knowing that should give people a little bit more confidence to try things that if you see really there is no known side effects, start with a little bit. But if it's your own health, especially with people with complicated diseases that the doctors have no solutions, these are the people I feel that feel the most empowered to try new things, new supplements, new herbal formulas, and new things, because they were given up. The doctors literally gave up on them, or they are gaslighting them, saying, "Oh, it's all in your mind. Take this anti-anxiety medication." There is so many of them. This became an epidemic now. So for me, this is the moment of the people working with complementary medicine to step out and try to inform people. Look, these and these and these are options if you want to try. So just to have an educational role here, that the people don't give up on their lives like it's happening a lot. Like they just sit at home waiting for for a miracle to happen, but it just doesn't happen if we don't make changes in our lifestyle and we try different solutions. Because until the doctors figure out solutions for a lot of autoimmune conditions and complex, mysterious diseases, then we can sit down and we may, just waste our time here on the planet waiting for solutions when we can try to empower ourselves. Oh, look, this herb helped this person. Why not give it a try? And
yes, exactly.
so for me, this is also another important field that we can explore.
So if I hear you, you mainly see a difference between urbanized areas and the countryside when it comes to like botanical knowledge, or
this is in Brazil, indeed. I
Okay.
totally deviated from your question, and I didn't
It's all
answer
right.
that. It's a very good point. So in Belgium, my feeling is that most people, it's changing now because of the work you do, and you are
Wow.
empowering really in just these 15 last years that I was living there. The change in mentality was huge, right? When I arrived there, the people were incredibly rational. I didn't see any, like you find like fragments of interest for foraging, for herbal medicine. You had to go out of your way to order some herbs. There was like this one shop in Ghent that would sell plants, and then you open the package and they almost didn't smell fresh. And I was like, wow. Or you buy herbs in just like those little bags, paper bags, which tasted like, I don't know, dust from your furniture. I don't know. So I was very disappointed with the offer in spices and herbs. There was really, it was hard to find in a very progressive city where I was living in Ghent. It was incredible. The mentality of the people were probably the most progressive in the whole Belgium. Even if I didn't live, but I met a lot of people from Antwerp, Brussels, and other places, and I found the people living in Ghent were the best, like in terms of progressiveness and open-mindedness, but still dealing with herbs and spices and connecting with nature, that was not there. They were very rational, very, there was a tendency, we're talking about generalizing about cultural differences, right? So I'm making these generalizations. So what I felt, the work you were doing, empowering other herbalists, inspiring them to literally fall in love with nature. I saw that in just the last years, it was such a huge difference. Everybody was talking about foraging suddenly, and then suddenly it's cool. And then the restaurants, like Michelin star restaurants, start serving wild foods. For me, this is it. This is how people fall in love with nature. This is how people will understand the need for protecting nature. So this is for me the most brilliant form of activism that we need in the world today, to get people to connect with nature again, to get them to understand we are part of nature. We are not separated. And our intellect alone will not get us there. We're not going to get solutions from solar power. We're not going to get solutions from electric cars. None of this is going to solve our problems. Our problems is our lack of connection with nature, understanding that we cannot live without forests and clean rivers, and that by eating what's in the wild, that's how we're going to get our health back. The keys are all there, and it's so much simpler than our intellect wants us to be and to do. We are programmed in school to think solutions will come from technology, and perhaps they will, perhaps they won't. They just will not answer all our problems. So I am very grateful to have met you, to have been inspired by you, and to see the work you're doing. The work done in Belgium is a huge change in mindset, in respect for nature. Now there is more people understanding why you shouldn't be cutting trees, why you should protect the little bit of greens that it's left. Now moving to Poland, then this is another situation that's completely different and goes back. It's a bit similar to Brazil in a way that they have still a lot of traditional knowledge. They are very attached to their culture.
Yes,
And
I remember when you just moved to Poland, you I don't know, I think we called or we were writing one another and you said, wow, Lieve, they have like huge bags of yarrow here and huge bags and I've never seen this in Belgium.
I was like Alice in Wonderland, really. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe because I came here because of nature, but I had no knowledge previously of what is the culture, what am I going to live there. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know the language was going to be a million times harder than I thought it was going to be. And this was one of the most positive surprises that I can find really high quality herbs in normal supermarkets, just small supermarkets in the villages. Everybody sells some things that you are like, wow, this is really advanced. For instance, verbascum, they have it in large bags, uncut, like just chunk it out, like some herbalists had their axe and they dry it on their counter and they put it in bags and they sell it everywhere. Everybody can find most herbs, and there is a few herbs that they are really, really big in selling, and they sell it in large bags. You don't need to consume herbs from bags. I don't need to buy bags. I buy bags of black and green tea, organic, but just for guests, because they like to see the bag in their mug. And I never have to buy chamomile tea from the Deleuze in those little paper bags that taste nothing like chamomile. They have probably been there drying for God knows how long. The taste, the flavor, and certainly the properties are not there anymore. So if you want to treat yourself with herbs, it's very difficult, I think, when you don't have access to high quality herbs.
Yes, and it's a pity because sometimes then people come to the conclusion that the herbs don't work.
Exactly.
If you don't have the good quality. Yes, it starts with good quality, of course.
Yeah. So indeed, there is so many differences. So these are the main ones. Access. I think that's what it makes a difference. But also having access to the knowledge. Here also in most regular pharmacies, drugstores, they have also a lot of herbal supplements from really herbal formulas. From high quality and at a relatively low price, because that's also the difference. In Belgium, where there were amazing supplements, and they have a few very nice labs, like Ortiz was my favorite. I love the the work they do extracting the plants and getting them standardized. They have real high quality control. So this is also important, having high quality supplements that will make it sure the active ingredients are there in the right amounts that were published, for instance, in research. It has to be something controlled. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I tried that valerian and it didn't work for me. But if you don't have a good brand, if you're not using the right dosage, there is many factors involved, indeed, in the experience. If it's going to be a positive experience or if it's going to be something that people will just try once and see, oh, this was not for me.
And so is it like that in Poland that usually people know which herbs they can take if they have like a throat ache or they have a cold or they have some rheumatism or I don't know?
No, they don't. The knowledge is going away completely,
Okay.
but you still find old people who have that knowledge.
Aha.
It's dissolving, it's going away. But for instance, there's so many beautiful stories from my neighbors that they grew up still. They were very young. That's why it's very difficult. If they are like 45, they have vague memories from the Soviet time. But this neighbor, just in few stories, for instance, she has the most amazing hair, so beautiful, probably genetics. But I was complimenting her hair, and she remembers that they grew up without shampoo. There was no shampoo. So they washed their hair with what they call pokshiva, which is nettles. They used the nettle extract. They dried it even in the winter. They would wash it with nettles and massage it, and that was their shampoo. And there were a few other herbs that she has no idea how they're called, but they grew up without having access to medicines. They didn't have antibiotics. So it's a total different, for me, it's like, wow, it's like in a movie, because as much as I feel, oh, I was lucky to have this knowledge from a few curandeiros in South America, it was also rare to find. I was just lucky that I knew and I would go for them. It's not like they are everywhere, and certainly they're not to be found in the urban areas where I grew up. You had to go out of your way, but they existed. Here, they still exist because this country opened up to the Western world just recently, just less than what, 2.5 decades or something. So it's a recent 3 decades. Yeah, it's 30 years more or less that they opened their doors to the wonders of civilization. If you say, like, now the supermarkets have a lot of blends, etc. So no one wants to use the things that their parents had to use, which is a shame. So they are not proud to use it. See, so slowly the knowledge is going to disappear, but you still find it. So, and because luckily the knowledge is growing in other countries. So before it disappears completely, now it starts growing again with a lot of people going to study herbalism.
Wow.
Yes, there is a lot of herbal courses in Warszawa, in the capital, in Warsaw, in Krakow, and there is more and more of these courses being promoted online also. Are they high quality courses? I don't know, but they go on a lot of field trips, full weekends, just exploring different areas of the country in different seasons. So it looks very promising, and it looks like it's going to ignite this passion again in the new generation of people, not to let the knowledge go down completely, like I think happened in a few European countries. Like since the knowledge was burned, right? The knowledge was destroyed. The traditional herbal knowledge from the alchemists, from the druids, from all the traditional, European knowledge from the ancient folk, it was burned by the church, basically. So That's why it's easier to find knowledge from the traditional tribes in the Americas, or to find them in the Ayurveda or Chinese medicine, because they still kept it in literature. They still kept the knowledge alive. There was no book burnings, or less, relatively.
Yes, it always baffles me how this knowledge is not seen as, I mean, if a species goes extinct, we are worried about it, but this knowledge is also going extinct, or a lot of things are already extinct. Um, and it's worrisome. For me, it's really worrisome because this is like essential information about the world we're living in. And we need to continue this very long line of, I mean, herbal healing has always been there. It's as old as humankind. So we have to find a way to continue it, and to incorporate more plants in our lives, and to see the importance of plants in our lives, I think.
Yes, I completely agree. It's so important
Mhm.
to, yeah, to also try to rescue some of the ancient knowledge, to dig for old books. I got a few of the ancient translations of Paracelsus and Culpeper and, Hildegard von Bingen, but they are, let's face it, the language is very different. I mean, even if you translate it, it's different because they think different.
Mhm.
So the way of explaining something, we have to make some gymnastics to understand and grasp. It takes intuition, it takes some, but I think it takes also trying, getting to use those herbs and what is it that they really mean, you know, and
Mhm.
those planetary aspects. I find it also another fascinating things, like the alchemist knowledge about herbs, that this should be harvested when Mercury is aligned with Venus, and you see, so those things I find that's another level. But I wanna go there one day and dig deeper.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And see what's there to be found. Because, yeah,
Yeah, one thing I was also wondering, is there like a typically Brazilian plant that you're missing in Europe?
I have to confess, yes, but it's not that simple. I have the feeling that, for instance, when I was learning their herbs, and I had to use North American and European books because they were already written in a much more structured way than the herbal books I could access there. So I had to translate the herbs, learn their names in Latin so that I could compare and try
Mhm.
to find equivalents in Brazil. So
Mhm.
what is the equivalent for them? Because a lot of plants we have the same, like plantain and dandelion and comfrey, for instance. We have a lot of similar herbs, but some others we don't. And so I learned, for instance, Tabebuia Velanedi Pau d'Arco, which is now today super famous. But at that time, it was like it's the most potent plant against cancer. It kills this and this and this type of cancer. There were like nice research proving that, and it was amazing. But I felt, yeah, nice. And then I couldn't find the equivalent of that here. So whenever I had some people with microbial infections, fungal infections, candida, all those things that have like, it's the root cause of a lot of tumors and things. So you go to the source. Some, a lot of it goes back to some mysterious microbial infection that the body couldn't get rid of. So I still love this plant. And when I had some episode of some stomach ulcer, I had to import a herb from Brazil. They call like Maitenus ilicifolia. I never found something like this in Europe, and I've seen a lot of results with patients in Brazil, really quick. It was a magical plant against ulcers and a lot of stomach issues. It works quick, and and I never found something substitute for that. So I still
Mhm.
other plants depending on the situation. But I have to confess that is also I still use ashwagandha on my dogs. They had thyroid issues and a lot of glandular issues. And ashwagandha balances the whole hormonal system better than anything I find locally. So as much as I love to use the plants that grow in the garden and in the forests here, I still use plants from other countries because if I have that knowledge, I'm not gonna not use it, you
Yes, of
know.
course. Yes.
And I have this feeling, something tells me that this knowledge existed also in Europe, and that because of the burn books,
Mhm.
we will never know what was the ashwagandha in Europe, you know.
Mhm.
What was the Mytenus ilicifolia? That's great for the stomach issues that we find here. I believe a lot of plants that are simple, for instance, the ones we see every day, we don't give them enough credit. Today, I would use for my stomach issues, I would go for the most simple plant ever, which is plantain, together with calendula. Voila, and that will be it. Calendula is such a magical plant that can heal so many viral infections and heals ulcers. My dogs had operations from doctors. They never used antibiotics. I healed them with calendula. Their wounds were like in a week, all the stitches, no inflammation, no issues. So I've been treating them with herbal medicine for their entire lives. And of course, if I have a dog with a cardio problem, the heart is in heart failure, I adopted a dog like this. Of course, they will need some real pharmaceutical because that has to be the precise dose for the heart to
Mhm.
work. And then he
Mhm.
will live longer because he needs that. So
Mhm.
if they have a thyroid failure already, because the thyroid is simply not working, they will need a thyroid hormone. I cannot find a herb that's going to replace thyroid hormone.
Mhm. Mhm.
But if I had known this earlier in their life and anticipated, perhaps the herbs would not have allowed this to get this far. So this is also how I see the beautiful role of plant medicine in preventing things from escalating.
Absolutely.
So there is so multiple level role of plants, but I don't think we should think of, oh, it's either conventional medicine or herb. No, they are all necessary depending on the stage people are. You know, if you have a high blood pressure today, you need a medicine to lower your blood pressure urgently. It's your life is depending on it. Great. But then what is the root cause? What's causing that? So let's work also on the root cause. Let's try to find a herbal protocol and a lifestyle change that will address the root cause. And this is for me what's moving me. The, finding the root cause of things, and this is how I feel herbs are. Yeah, they are amazing. They are.
Yeah. Yeah. I also I felt I think it's very interesting what you say about, how we lost certain things here in Europe, certain knowledge. And to me, it sometimes feels even, I mean, I've been working as a herbalist and a forager for more than 20 years, but sometimes it feels like some pieces of the puzzle are still there and others are just gone forever. And this is, yeah, it makes it works on both sides. It also gives a lot of room for improvement and for a new future herbal knowledge. But it also makes me so sad because, yeah, what I just said, it's extinct forever. And it's just such a pity. It's such a pity. And
This was exactly my feeling when I moved to Europe, that I felt how a lot of people had their minds closed to the connection with nature and how the knowledge was literally burned
Mhm,
away, you
mhm,
know, in the Middle Ages. And I felt I'm sure it existed here in much as much, like in so much glory as we saw in the Chinese medicine, with the difference that they still keep a lot of their medical knowledge from 5,000 years ago. The culture of herbal treating patients you can prove that because they still have the manuscripts. They still have
Yes.
that to
Yeah.
prove. But I'm like, yeah, I studied Chinese medicine and that is super well studied, but I almost never use Chinese herbs. I basically refuse because it's like, no, there has to be an equivalent here. You know, there was a serious bacterial infection recent, and then I gave in and I got coptis, which is a very, very powerful plant, which I would use really as last resort, but it totally works. Some antibiotic resistant bacteria. I think the future is herbs because we are getting to a point already where the most serious bacterial infections are not going to react to antibiotics. Worse, then the doctors will keep trying, try this antibiotic. It doesn't work. Another one and another one. And what happens? Then our immune system, which is mostly reliant on bacteria in our gut, 70% of the bacteria in our gut is our immune defense. We're going to destroy all of it with that amount of trial and errors of antibiotics. And that will take all the possibility from our body to try to fight the new pathogen, which we were not used to it because it mutated already in resistance to the use of those. So for me, it's another reason to keep investigating, to keep trying. And you want to try something. Yeah. If your body is still in full health and you're just having a strep infection in your throat, very small chances that antibiotics will really help. It will keep reoccurring. It will keep coming back if you do antibiotics because you're not going to empower your body to really fight it. So there is a lot of amazing antimicrobials. And to be back to the pau d'arco from Brazil, I only got over it when I moved to here, and I have 3 large walnut trees here, and they start falling green. And then I look at those green husks and I'm like, my God. And that's back to the books, like black walnut, how the Indians use the green husks of the walnut as antiparasitical, antiviral, antimicrobial. It's the most powerful antimicrobial. And that's my pau d'arco. And now I'm not buying pau d'arco from Brazil anymore because I have my own walnut husks. So for me, slowly and by getting in contact with nature and trying it in yourself, you see, you get back that. I had these long COVID things, which is mostly a lot of the symptoms are caused by a lot of histamine release in the body. This black, it's not the black walnut, it's the European walnut, but the green husks have very, very similar properties, very similar chemicals. So using that, I'm just reducing the histamine use. And feverfew also to reduce histamine. So all those things that we just rely so much on pharmaceuticals that are easy to solve with just things we find everywhere. We can just forage for it and make our own elixirs or tonics or things that can just have zero side effects in there.
Yeah. So what are some of the new, I don't know if there are any, but did you discover any new plants in Poland? Plants of which you didn't know they existed before?
Not plants, but mushrooms. Oh
because
my
this was another
God.
part, because yes, this was also one of my questions, because when I think about like foraging in Poland, it clicks in my mind, and it, of course, this is a stereotype thing, but I only think about mushrooms.
Exactly.
Is this still passed down from one generation to another?
It is. And they don't want to share the knowledge. They absolutely don't share the knowledge, even among themselves.
Oh.
They have so much competition on the knowledge from mushrooms that you hear jokes. There is the stereotype jokes that even the grandmothers want to teach the grandchildren the knowledge because they find it so precious. So it's very funny. They love their mushroom picking, and they have competitions. Who picks the most mushrooms and who knows the most? And so they have a lot of new courses for herbalism and foraging and wild plants. But it will be much harder to find a forager willing to teach the tricks for mushrooms. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is very interesting. But luckily, with the internet and the help of books, it's pretty easy to learn about the main things, the safe ones and the very poisonous ones. That the first ones you should know is like, what is 100% safe? And then what is medium safe? But I love to start with the super poisonous ones that are really common to find. And then you stay away from them. What can look like them, also stay away from them. You know, in the beginning, first year, it's like, I don't want to know the difference. Anything looking white, I'm not touching. So that was my level, 0 level, beginner, total beginner. And it's the same with plants. Huh? You cannot learn plants from books. You have to be exposed to them every day. You have to watch and see them grow the whole year round. Oh, this is how they look when they are tiny, tiny babies. And this is how they are medium. And now they are in flower. And the plants are completely different. They have different energies. They have different properties. And you will harvest just the roots, but it has the right moment that you can harvest that. So for me, it's the same with mushrooms. You have to be in the forest every single day in mushroom season if you want to learn about them. You get there a week later because, I don't know, you were busy, you were studying, you were doing things, you just missed that mushroom. You will never see that again this season. So it's really a humbling quest, you know, for the mushroom. How come I missed the honey mushrooms last year? I didn't see them. And I'm like, why? Oh, because I was 2 weeks busy doing something else and walking the dogs on another part of the forest. And then I completely missed. And it was a total different season because it started much earlier, the rain. So the mushroom season shifted a month earlier, and I was expecting the honey mushrooms in September, and they were never there. Perhaps they were there a month earlier, you know. And there were other mushrooms that I wasn't expecting. And then you see them. By seeing them every day and comparing, then I took pictures. It's really like by being there with the mushrooms. I tried 3 mushroom walks in Belgium, and it was a disaster. It was like, man, I will never learn this, because if you go on a 3-time walks, what are your odds to find any mushroom at all first? And if you find like 2 or 3, but they are in a very different stage, you cannot see them growing in A, B, C, D, in all the stages until they rot. And so for me, doing a course in any natural art, like herbs or mushrooms or something, the key is to be in contact with them. You cannot learn that from books or from theories. You can have the basics. It helps, of course, knowing dangers and the basics, how to do it properly, step by step. But that's theory. That's only 5% of the work. The rest is being busy there, looking at them, watching them, smelling them, taste them. Don't taste them, you know. Just take what you can. But being in contact for me, this was really the most rewarding bonus of being in Poland, because the challenge, the cultural challenge, the language challenge, they are huge, and they are only surpassed by all the bonus that nature brings, and the mushrooms are such a gift.
Yes,
So back to your thing, did you find some herbs that are different? I didn't. They were similar to the ones I see in Belgium, but the mushrooms make a huge difference. Yes.
Yes, and I totally agree about the contact in the fields with the plants and the mushrooms. It's just so vitally essential.
Yeah, exactly.
And nothing can replace it.
No. No,
Nothing,
no.
just nothing in the whole world.
I could have gone for an academic course on mycology, and then you take 5 years and you get a PhD and all. But then you will only really learn about the mushrooms if you go to the field and you are there. And for me, this is it. And I find that the people in this village are amazing, and they get the knowledge from their parents. They know what to pick, but then the knowledge is losing. And now you see how very few people still have that knowledge, but they also don't want to expand and learn new mushrooms. So I love, because my passion and my fascination is, I see something new and nobody's speaking, because they are very quick, and they wake up at 4 a.m. and they spend the whole day in the forest. So when I go, there is basically nothing. And I don't mind. I'm going there for the dogs. So when I find the mushroom, it's extra special because, wow, they left this one for me. Amazing. But it's also suspicious. Why is there so much of this mushroom? Then there has to be something with it that nobody picked, you see? So that's also a sign. When they don't pick, and then I go and I read about it. Like, the amanitas, for instance. Oh, they are so fascinated because nobody picks amanita here. And there is a lot to do with amanitas. And then I go like, okay. And then I go and learn which are the differences, like the amanita excelsa or the amanita rubescens or something, for like tiny, very tiny difference. I'm not going to do them right now. Just giving an example, something that can be incredibly poisonous and something that can be just inedible, and even medicinal. So the differences can be deadly. And that's why it's important that it makes sense to be very afraid, especially mushrooms. Plants are much easier, much less tricky. You learn about the poisonous plants, you learn that, this one you don't pick when they are in this stage, etc. And that's very black and white. The fungal kingdom is a total different kingdom. And it sparks a total new area of my heart and brain.
Yes, and it also goes very fast, right? I mean, if you have plants, then you see them for months in a row, and how they evolve and make new shaped leaves and everything. But with the mushrooms, it's just like the time frame in which you can get to know them is just a lot smaller than with most plants.
It's very, very tricky. And this is the thing. I feel, if I would say, who were your best foraging and herbal teachers? It was my dogs. There was no books or any master and anyone. And I love all my teachers and everybody, every mentor I crossed paths with. They were amazing. But no one brought me so much knowledge as my dogs, because they take me to nature every single day, even when I was the most busy and when I had to squeeze and have 5 hours of sleep because I wanted to walk them and I wanted to take them to nature places. But they were bringing me to foraging places and to things. And they were showing me, Mom, look at this plant growing here. And I would go and sniff the plant with them, really. I don't know if I should be confessing this, but they were teaching me to take and go and sniff, because I wanted to experience what they were feeling. They were showing me when the sieve, the whole juices of some trees were coming. When there was still winter, they were sniffing the plant, like from the bottom to top. Like, I'm like, oh, in a week, this plant will have leaf. And I will, they were showing me so many signs. They could, I don't know if they could smell or hear or what it was that they had. They would show me so many interesting things that I learned from observing, from feeling nature.
Super fascinating.
Yes. So they were my number one teachers. No one else. And the same with the mushrooms. They go and they teach me, because they bring me to the forest no matter the weather. It could be stormy, it could be snowy, it could be, let's go, mommy. And then there we go to the forest, and hey, another meal. I come back with 0.5 kilo of mushrooms, because they just took me to a forest, and I'm having every day for 4 months, we eat mushrooms every day.
Wow.
Thanks to them. Yeah, it's another level. So I'm very humbled by the chance to be connected with nature. It makes us feel so small, but also part of it. It's at the same time, you are big, because you are one atom in that immensity of power. So you are part of that power in a way, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So what is the legal framework when it comes to both foraging and herbalism in Poland? Is it
In
like
Poland is like this because the short answer is there isn't any legal constraint because they are still very much in a gray zone, you see. So basically, and this is a little bit of a shame because, of course, there is a lot of scammers and a lot of people who will be deceiving, but you see this in every field, right? And I see a lot of people call themselves naturopaths and they have just follow a 1 year course online
Mhm.
and now they have some diploma, whatever. But how can they have experience enough in the human body, in the field of healing, if they haven't gone through so many years of experience life, you see? So for me, the legal constraints here they are not officialized. There is very few things, and a lot of people can call themselves herbalists. And it was like this in Brazil back then with the field of the curandeiros. Indeed, anyone could say they are curandeiros. And
Mhm.
what is the difference? For me, what counts is also to focus on what really matters is you have the knowledge or you don't. And when you start showing that you can help people, that you can expose that, you can share your knowledge with others, and it's being applied and tested, this will give you credibility just by showing that it does work. This knowledge is really there. You can check it in books, you can check it in the practice, you can just. So I think we are back to the old fashioned thing, like don't trust just anyone, right? You have to know who is reliable, who is not. And I think making things legal will not change that. And I know I'm probably going forward with your, don't know, probably not the answer you wanted, but the short answer, there is nothing very legal here. And I think this is not going to solve. I see, for instance, in the US, where everything is very official and legal, and you have to be certified and board certified and have to go through all the things. And still, if you have only academic training in the field of clinical herbalism,
Mhm. Mhm.
you still know nothing how to help people. You have no real life contact with the plants. You didn't really have at least 500 patients with similar symptoms to compare. Why did this herb work on that and not on this one? So experience is what makes a difference, I think. And this is what people should be going for when they think of credibility. They shouldn't go
Mhm.
for who has the most renowned diploma. Oh, this person has a PhD in clinical herbalism. What does that really mean? You know, how how many patients did this person work with in practice? And
Yeah.
yes, so I think in the end, the people who have the knowledge, they will just be credible by proving themselves and having the knowledge that really works and is
Mhm.
effective. And we see that with, for instance, homeopathy. Why homeopathy is has such a bad reputation? Because it's probably easier to find I don't know, to see a unicorn than to find a real decent homeopathic practitioner. You know, it takes like 20, 30 years of real knowledge, practicing, studying deeply to understand what homeopathy is. So you will not find them just everywhere. It just doesn't matter. In Belgium, I remember I went to like, I don't know, 4 different homeopaths, and they were really doctors, trained doctors, because that's how it works in Belgium. To work with the natural healing, you need to be also a doctor. So they had no knowledge of homeopathy, and it was just a waste of time and money. And then I understand why people say, "Oh, homeopathy doesn't work." No, yeah, indeed, it doesn't. If you don't know how to practice, then yeah, if you have a negative experience with that. But then you
Mhm.
find one good homeopath, which I was lucky to find, and that's the only way I could understand that it really is powerful. And then I had tried my dog to fix some skin diseases, a dog I found on the streets. And this homeopath is there more than an hour listening to his case, looking at the dog, testing him and getting to know him. And she gives me one single homeopathic remedy. And in 2 weeks, the dog there never had any symptom anymore. I never had to apply anything. And I tried several vets, several products. Nothing was working. This one remedy, giving just 3 days in a row. And that was it. Forever. He never had that skin issue. And it was he had mange, by the way. It was like a very serious infection on the skin. Yeah. He had no hair. The hair couldn't even grow anymore. It was a very advanced level. And this homeopathy, and this lady was amazing, but she knew what she was doing. And you don't find this kind of practitioners everywhere, unfortunately. So even though some people may have the title, they did a course, they followed all the protocols that they're certified homeopaths. And I don't think that will make them a good practitioner. I don't know if it illustrates.
Yes, it takes time to build knowledge and also to build some kind of intuitive feeling, I think.
Precisely.
This kind of, it's hard to put it in words, but yes, and some empathy for the patients, of course, and getting to know the patient. And yeah. And when it comes to foraging, what is the legal frame there? Are you allowed to pick everywhere just in Poland?
No.
Okay.
And there is a lot of rules, and there is the protected, for instance, lion's mane is protected. You cannot pick a certain amount of mushrooms. There is a lot of legal framework for the work with nature for foraging, but there is just no implementation of that. Nobody's ever going to get fined.
One of the things is that I saw your Instagram account is called Regenerative Herbalism, right?
Well, yes, I'm working on a different project now.
Okay.
Because
tell me all about it.
Yeah, it's like my passion for plants were always connected also with the feeling of like everything in nature is here to help each other and to sustain life and to support each other. So I had a lot of these in Belgium. What made me start my initial blog of healing weeds, very old blog, and there's no updated things there, but it was like I made this Facebook page and all, was an attempt to get people to understand the wild herbs growing in the gardens and that they would love their plants and understand why they are there. And they are much richer and much more important for wildlife than their grass, So this was the main point. I felt it was initially as activism, try to get the people to love their plant. Oh, look, this is incredibly healthy for you also, that you don't eat just lettuce from the shop, because there has basically very little nutritional value for you when wild plants will add so much more. They have polyphenols. They have a lot of phytonutrients that you cannot even list. So many there are. And they will feed the healthy bacteria in your gut that you didn't know they were still alive. They are sometimes barely alive, and you start feeding them wild plants, and then they just sprout to life again. So all those things I tried to share there, the knowledge of, let's put a few plants that are very common in the garden. Let's try to see if more people love their plants growing. Oh, look, this one, I recognize it. So I think this is the thing. The role of a herbalist today is to get people to really love what they see in the garden, to understand the role of those plants, of biodiversity, and get the feeling of connecting with them again, that we don't need grass. If the grass grows spontaneously, leave it. But if other plants are growing, let them be. Let them have their role to play, and understand them and connect with them. Why are they growing there? And then there is those things, and then about a lot of French books about why the plants are growing there, what it means. A lot of comfrey growing on a certain area. Why is it growing? What it means for the soil health. So regenerative means several things for the project I'm working on now. So it will be about sharing the knowledge of how the plants help soil regeneration,
Mm-hmm.
how they help to recover insect species and birds, and how the plants can help our body to regenerate their cells back to health. So it's on many levels. The aspect of, because it was in the past, in the 80s, well, like it was called like natural therapies and conventional therapies, but I feel the name natural has been so overused and it's
Mm-hmm.
basically meaningless at this point because everything is natural, right? If everything came from this planet, in the end, even the plastic I'm using could be considered, in the end, natural in a way. They came from fossil fuels, they are natural. They come from this planet. So in a way,
Mm-hmm.
so if you want to make a stretch, everything in the end is natural. So for me, this is not about being natural or not. It's about there are things that are synthesized in a lab, but they're extracted from plants or from something, but they will help your body to regenerate itself. So it doesn't matter if it's literally naturally as it came. For instance, that those um, cardiovascular medicines that we use, you cannot use lily of the valley as it is to help your heart. You
Mm-hmm.
just can't. I mean, don't do it. But if you have it come from a lab, it's already standardized. It will come with those substance, the active substance will be totally well dosed. So that's a brilliant use for lab application. So is that natural? It doesn't matter. It's helping somebody's heart to live longer. So for me, the term regenerative is like, I got closer to it in permaculture, and that
Mm-hmm.
was the main reason to move to Poland, which was a little bit part of your your question some time ago. It was about growing a food forest that would be aligned with the concepts of permaculture, which is the concept of we are here as healers of the soil, as guardians of the planet. And if I have a little piece of land where I can put some love and let the plants grow and help each other, so that they are like working in symbiosis as they would do in nature. We just blocked them from doing by adding unnecessary plants to it and adding too high concentration of grass in a large area by compacting the soil with our activities. So there is a lot of things that I think there is this educational work, a lot of it to be done on this field of regenerating ourselves, reconnecting with nature, bonding again with the soul of things, with the universe, with what's powering that. Why is this plant growing? Is that something that can teach me something? So, being humble also to be learning from nature all the time. And I think there is so many keys that we can get from our connection with nature that's a daily workshop.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think plants also have some solutions for a lot of the problems that we are facing today and in the future, like the whole food supply thing and the soil erosion and the loss of biodiversity and climate change. And it's people always have the tendency to think or to look for answers far away, but it may be just right under your feet.
And
We're
much
not
simpler.
Yes, we're not paying enough attention to these very common wild plants that are so powerful. They're really like
Yes,
power heroes.
they really are.
So when it comes to eating wild plants, what is like the plant that you probably eat most on a daily basis or almost daily basis?
That's nettles and dandelions. I'm very classic, but they are also abundant. They are
Hmm.
abundant. There are
Hmm.
so many. There is those tiny, very special plants that I see growing that I could, no, they're so tiny and they're so, you know, not in huge amounts. And then there is areas where the dogs have to walk, and there will need to be mowed. And it's very difficult for me to have that, to have the machine going. Just in a few places where so the dogs can walk, I cannot let the grass grow a meter high. And slowly, every year we get less and less grass. It's all being replaced by the other plants, crawling plants and creepers. And I find it's going so much quicker than I expected. So that is much, much less to cut. And we do it very, very little. And the neighbors probably are not so happy about it. But luckily it's not Belgium, because in Belgium they would already have called the cops because, they have high grass. Yeah, the neighbors we had there were that type. So that was also partly the reason why I felt, there needs more, awareness. People understand the importance of a wild garden. So, yeah, I love that we can keep a wild garden. Yeah, that it's no big deal. They probably look strange, but we are foreigners. We are strange anyway. So there is literally zero to lose. There is no reputation to be kept or something. You don't have to keep your name. They would judge you anyway because you are a foreigner. So you might as well have your garden look as weird as you. And then I feel really a green light to totally not have to adjust and do. And we want to make a board those I've seen in the internet somewhere people say like, I don't know, don't worry about the dandelions. We are feeding the bees or something, or don't worry about the wildness of our garden. Don't get scared or whatever. We are going to think about something catchy that we can put at the gate that people don't get so worried. Like, what's happening here? So many plants.
Yeah, and by the way, I totally agree about the nettles and the dandelions. They're probably the ones that I eat most as well. Yeah, they're just, especially the nettles, they're just so easy to add to pretty much everything.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't feel any time sorry because they grow also so quick and they are everywhere in my garden.
They do.
So, and I don't want to scare the neighbors. So it helps me to eat them even more because I don't know if there is too many nettles too visible, then they could probably be worried. So I keep, it's an abundant source of nutrients and they are so neutral. They fit with every dish pretty much.
I think it should be a staple for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, really powerful.
There is enough nettles in the world. You can eat it and it's the ultimate regenerative plant, right?
Exactly. So we are in one page on the nettles. My God, I absolutely love them. And I dry for the winter and we eat the seeds also totally ground and like supplements.
Yes, because in Poland, I can imagine the winters are a lot harsher than in Belgium.
They were harsher and they were longer, but not this year. So perhaps we are getting the climate from Belgium soon. Because, climate change is happening now quick.
Yes, it is totally happening.
This year it was really very similar. When I see normally the plants here would start growing almost 2 months later than in Belgium. Now it was very similar. When I saw a plant growing, look, it's already growing in my garden too. Very scary. Yeah, very quick.
Yeah. And do you dry a lot of or do you preserve in any other way?
Yes, I dry a lot of plants, but I dried my mushrooms too. I've been eating mushrooms every day the whole winter. There's dry mushrooms every single day. And I pickled mushrooms and I prepared the plants also in jars, like jam and tinctures. There is a lot of tinctures everywhere. I shouldn't confess this openly, but there is a few bottles I forgot to label and I don't know what they are. So, I mean, from many, many years ago, but I still smell it's so fresh. I will find out what they are at some point.
I think this is true for every herbalist. Yes. I always
If
and I always tell my students, do not forget to label your jar or your bottle or whatever. But I'm guilty
today,
of it
not in a
myself.
week. Yeah, today, not in a week,
Yes, yes,
because
yes.
next week you already stashed so many bottles on top of those ones that you, how come is this without label? And there you have it. So,
Exactly. That's how it happens. Yes.
so some of them are still, oh, they smell amazing, but I feel, how can I not recognize? So I feel when I make a new tincture from the same plant, I will finally make the link. Ah, it was this one.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
I'm
yes.
not throwing them away yet.
Yeah. Maybe this is interesting to ask the listener how much jars and bottles they would have in their cupboards and closets and yes, just lost somewhere in the house. Yeah. I'm sure everyone has them. Really, really. So, yeah, this is one of the questions that I usually ask all of my guests. We've been talking about witchcraft before in the beginning. So, and this is also something that will be different to look at from, the different perspectives country-wise. Have you ever been called a witch, or did people tell you that you would have been burned if you were born in another time? Or like did this happen in Brazil, in Belgium, in Poland?
It
Tell me.
happened on 3 countries already.
Oh,
Yes.
oh.
Yes. Yeah, I decided to embrace it because if you are different, yeah, you will be called a witch one way or another, whether you have a lot of bottles of tincture in your house or not. That's not going to make a difference. You have a different way of experiencing nature, right? It's like how you deal with the plants, how you connect with the animals. It's something different about you. And I think
Mhm,
most humans in our culture, we are not taught to accept diversity, to embrace somebody that's not looking like what the school wanted us to look like and to behave like and to think like, especially the way of thinking is what I think make people think other people who are different, who are more connected with nature, who have more knowledge on some fields that they will be then immediately labeled a witch. But it's just because we lack the knowledge to understand
mhm,
what's in there. What is it about that person that they feel more connected? Why do they wanna have so many plants hanging all over the house? So all those things, of course, they are I'm sure it's not just for herbalists, people who love animals and save a lot of cats and a lot of things. There is a lot of things that will already make people think you are looking like a witch. Why don't you cut your hair like everybody else is cutting, or wearing a certain type of fashion? That is how people dress or how they
mhm.
eat. Oh yeah, how they eat is also indicative of being called a witch because you use so many plants. You know?
Yeah, I think it's particularly interesting that you have heard this in all three
I
countries.
did, and it's sometimes in a funny way, and then it's okay, and sometimes it's in a way that you feel worried, like, what's next? You know,
Mhm,
if it was legal, I don't know. I think in some cultures they would still burn people who are different because the level of human acceptance of diversity has not really improved so much. Improved in certain circles of progressive people, intellectuals. But I don't know, in the real normal people, like working people living normal lives, they don't have time to understand what's happening
mhm.
in different cultures or in different mindsets, or they only know people like them. For instance, those in the case of my village, they understand only people going to church. You see, everyone not going to church is already, I don't know, one step closer to being called a witch or heretic, at least. You see, so there is a lot of cultural background and that will cloud how people will see the world and perceive. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Lyra, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation.
Yes, it was a pleasure sharing this with you.
So if
Talking
people
to
want
you.
to find out about your work, where can they find more info?
I am still working on the website on this new project, which is the regenerative herbalism. And at this moment, I will put the link on my Facebook page, Healing Weeds. So the Healing Weeds is the closest I can have.
All right.
The Facebook page and my Instagram, but it's a work in progress still.
I'm really looking forward to hearing more about this project because
Thank you.
I totally agree with what you think are the most important things about herbalism and about working with plants. I feel like we're totally on the same page.
Yes, we were always.
Yeah, it's true.
We will forever be our herbal sisters and soul sisters. Yes, I'm very happy. Just knowing that you are there doing this work, it doesn't matter. The geographical distance makes no difference. My heart is there, totally connected with your work you're doing. Thank you so much.
Wow, my heart is exploding hearing those words. Really, wow.
It's
Thank
true.
you so much.
Thank you too.
So, dear wildling that is listening or that was listening, thank you so much for still being here. I hope to see you in the next episode. And in the meantime, keep powdering your nose with dandelion pollen. Bye bye. A warm thank you for listening, Wildie. Are you feeling a wild itch after this episode? Well, just head over to wildplantforager.com and feel free to connect with me on social media. I'm looking forward to the next episode. I hope you'll be there. But for now, just go outside and follow your wild heart.